Hello and welcome to the program. Within the past hour, several Ethiopian anti-government groups in Washington, D.C. have signed an agreement to form an alliance against Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. It comes as Ethiopia's army calls on former soldiers to join its fight against rebels from the Tigray region. The coalition calls itself the United Front of Ethiopian Federalists and Confederalists Forces. They say if the government doesn't negotiate with them, they will attempt to dismantle it by force.
As a response to the myriad of crises facing the various nations of the country and to reverse the harmful effects of Abiy Ahmed's autocratic rule to our peoples and beyond, we have recognized the urgent need to collaborate and join our forces towards a safe transition in the country. Hence, have established the United Front of Ethiopian Federalist and Confederalist Forces.
Shortly, we'll be live in Addis Ababa, where Samuel Getachew is standing by for us. But first, let's get the latest from Alan Fisher, who's in Washington for us. Hello there, Alan. What are we hearing about these forces joining together? What are you hearing from the ground?
Well, 9 groups coming together, both political and armed opposition. Some of them have actually been fighting each other, but they have united against what they see as the common enemy, which is the current government in Addis Ababa. Speaking to one African expert just in the last couple of hours, he expressed concern because he said, looking down the list, he didn't recognise some of the names on the list. He didn't know some of these groups. He wasn't aware of how much support they had, either on the ground or they could provide materially, and what sorts of resources they had access to. The reason they're doing it here in Washington is because the US Special Envoy is in Addis Ababa. They're trying to put pressure on the United States to say, look, there is a level of opposition against the current government, and therefore there has to be some sort of political solution, some sort of negotiating. But the noises coming out of Addis Ababa seem to be against that. There are groups, some of them involved in what has happened here in Washington in the last hour, who say that they could be in the Ethiopian capital within the next few weeks or perhaps even months. There are 1 or 2 groups who say they're on the edge of the capital. That has been dismissed by the police in Addis Ababa as nothing more as propaganda and lies. But this seems to be a significant moment when groups who are even in opposition with one another can get together, pull together and present this united front against the Ethiopian government in the hope that the world will start putting pressure on Addis Ababa to come to some sort of political solution.
Alan, thank you for the update from Washington, D.C. Let's bring in Samuel Getachew, a journalist live for us in Addis Ababa. Samuel, we're hearing that American citizens are being advised to leave Ethiopia. What are you hearing from where you are?
Well, the U.S. Embassy today advised its citizens to leave Ethiopia, even if they don't have resources, that the embassy will be able to provide them the resources needed to purchase a ticket and to leave Ethiopia. And this comes as Jeffrey Flintman, the U.S. envoy to the Horn of Africa, has left Ethiopia. And we're not even sure if he was able to meet with the Ethiopian Prime Minister. But again, the relationship between the U.S. and Ethiopia has really suffered. They have had their differences in the last weeks. The Ethiopian side accuses the United States of supporting the TPLF, in which they have said by the parliament order that they're a terrorist organization, comparing them to the pressure in reflection to the pressure they're feeling. They're saying that it's like negotiating with the Taliban. So again, going back and forth between the TPLF and the Ethiopian side, there doesn't seem to be any compromise. The Ethiopian side calls them a terrorist organization. The other side is saying the Ethiopian side is helping create genocide. So again, there doesn't seem to be any compromise. More than 2 million people, thousands of people killed, a conflict defined by sexual violence. This is expected to continue.
Samuel, and all this comes as civilians and now retired generals are being called to join the fight. What's been the reaction from civilians on the ground and these former generals?
Well, it's not just the general, even going way down to the private. They're all being called to serve Ethiopia. The Ethiopian Prime Minister has been saying this is to save the soul of the nation, the foundation of the nation. And he said that he's willing to see them buried, the enemy, he called them, by the blood and bones of Ethiopians. So again, it's not just the soldiers that are joining. It's also young people have been asked to register their weapons and fight in case the TPLF comes to Addis Ababa. But again, the TPLF has been in a coalition government for 27 years, has a record of human rights abuses. We're not sure if even Ethiopians are willing to give the TPLF a chance at the moment, because again, they have had a record of, again, human rights abuse. In a nation of young people, they've only known a TPLF government in the past. So this is really becoming a real concern and worrisome for many Ethiopians, and many foreigners are choosing to leave Ethiopia at the moment.
What impact is the fact that the global media isn't able to get into these regions like Tigray? What impact is that having on the coverage and the actual situation on the ground there?
Well, to begin with, one of the major media reported yesterday or the day before saying that the TPLF soldiers are in the suburbs of Addis Ababa. We spent the whole night checking and calling sources and all kinds of stuff, and it was proven to be wrong. So there is a misgiving about international media among Ethiopian government side and the Ethiopian people. But again, we haven't been able to travel to Tigray since June. There's no communications. We can't verify all these numbers that the UN has been telling us. They've been saying 91% of the population are facing a need of emergency aid. 1 million people are facing famine. But again, we're just taking the words of the UN because we can't travel to those areas. I was able to go to Afar. I've seen trucks heading to Tigray. But we always wonder if that's enough.
Thank you for that update. Samuel Getachew live for us in Addis Ababa.